Nu fick han en fin applåd. Rasmus Hemström från folkmusikprogrammet här på Musikhögskolan. Välkomna hit idag till vårt event som kommer handla om det vi kallar för global talang i Sverige. Internationella doktorander som vi har bedrivit experiment på under 1 års tid. Vi på Stockholms akademiska forum. Så välkomna alla hit i salen och alla ni som är med oss digitalt. Jag vill börja med att hälsa Musikhögskolans rektor, Per-Henrik Holgersson, välkommen.
Tusen tack Maria, underbart att få bli hälsad välkommen till sin egen hemplats. Varmt välkomna till Kungliga Musikhögskolan. Jag heter Per-Henrik Holgersson och har förmånen att arbeta som rektor här vid Kungliga Musikhögskolan. Vi har en underbar devis tycker jag i vår vision. Det är musik för människan och framtiden. Det är så att musik, det är urkunden för oss. Det är det som händer här. Ni hör precis folkmusiken. Det här är ett underbart rum som vi är i som heter Nathan Milstein-salen. Som faktiskt var en donation som vi fick när vi byggde huset. Nathan Milstein var en mycket erkänd violinist och då fick vi också döpa namnet till den här salen efter Nathan Milstein. Själv är jag körmusiker och stå och sjunga kör a cappella här i ett fantastiskt rum. Det är, man liksom njuter av att vara i musikens klingande miljö. Nu ska ni få vara i den här miljön idag och ha en, hoppas jag, riktigt spännande och bra konferens. Låt då gärna musiken kanske finnas där och klinga lite grann som en slags grundfas som finns i kroppen. Jag vet inte hur ni har det, men för mig är det så att musiken finns på något sätt i mig precis hela tiden. Det är fantastiskt, man hör de här klangerna, tonerna, det orkestrala eller beaten eller poppen eller vad det nu är som går. Så kanske att det kan känna ett uns av det idag, att det får bli en inspirationsfaktor. Musiken är också någonting som är viktigt för oss, tror jag, som människor, som kulturella varelser. I det vi gör i fest, i glädje, i sorg, i eftertanke. Men så ska man komma ihåg också att pausen är väldigt effektiv, alltså tystnaden. Så hoppas att ni ska få en riktigt inspirerande dag här idag. Där ni befinner er, vi startades 1771 så vi känner oss väldigt hedrade av att Gustav III tänkte på musiken som någonting viktigt för att utbilda sig inom. Och i de här lokalerna, jag själv var student här på 80-talet, då var ett runt hus ungefär där ni sitter nu. För er som kanske kan Stockholm så vet att Musikhögskolan syntes inte från andra vägen för det var ett sånt lågt hus. Nu ett stort, högt, fint campus och vi firar år 10 år för er som var tidigare. Så att vi är jätteglada över att de har de här möjligheterna för våra studenter och för vår forskning som vi har vid Kungliga Musikhögskolan. Så med detta vill jag nu säga, ha nu en inspirerande dag. Det är ju ett kunskapande det handlar om att få vara i högre utbildning och hålla på med forskning. Att ta del av kunskap, att dela med sig av kunskap och tillsammans ackumulera kunskap till vår omvärld på olika sätt och inom olika områden. Så varmt välkomna musiken för människan och framtiden och också kunskapen som är en viktig bärare för utveckling av demokrati och framtidstro. Välkomna!
Tack så mycket. Innan jag går vidare ska jag be er på rad 3 här att ni hoppar in, för det kommer komma lite folk som är sena av olika anledningar, så att vi frigör platser till vänster i rummet om det går bra. Så slipper de gå runt hela salen. Tack! Tack Per-Henrik. Då har jag äran att hälsa nästa fantastiska universitetsrektor välkommen, Annika Östman Wernersson från Karolinska institutet. Välkommen.
Thank you, Maria. I switched to English. I hope that's okay. Dear doctoral students, colleagues, and partners, last autumn I had the pleasure of welcoming many of you to Karolinska Institutet. Today it's time to hear about your experiences over the past year and to learn from your reflections and impressions. Karolinska Institutet is one of the world's leading medical universities. However, to continue delivering world-class research and education, we must attract the very best students and researchers from around the globe. International researchers bring new perspectives, experiences, and ideas. This intellectual diversity strengthens the quality of our research, expands our global networks, and helps us address the complex challenges facing our world. Today, around 30% of our 2,000 doctoral students come from countries other than Sweden. This is something we are very proud of, but we would very much like to see that the proportion grow even more. International talent is essential to Swedish research, our capacity for innovation, and our long-term competitiveness. But attracting talent is not enough. We must also succeed in retaining it. Sweden cannot afford to lose the valuable expertise that has been educated and trained at our universities. Every time an international doctoral graduate leaves the country after completing their studies, we lose important knowledge, experience, and innovative potential. That is why there is reason for optimism when we see that the proportion of international doctoral graduates who choose to stay in Sweden has increased from 4 of 10 to almost 6 of 10. This shows that we are moving in the right direction. And from June 11, the Swedish government has also introduced new regulations for doctoral students and researchers, making it even easier for doctoral students to obtain a residence permit in Sweden to conduct research. We're very happy about that. To attract and retain the very best researchers, we must also be an attractive employer. And I'm therefore particularly pleased that in 2025, Karolinska Institutet was ranked as the 8th most attractive employer in Sweden among young professionals. But attractiveness is not something that can be achieved once and for all. It must be earned every day by creating environments where people can grow, contribute, and feel welcome. All of you here today represent an important asset to Sweden. Whether you choose a career in academia, industry, the public sector, or entrepreneurship, I hope you will see Sweden as a place where you can build your future and continue contributing with your knowledge, creativity, and expertise. Finally, I would like to thank everyone who's made this initiative possible. Thank you.
Tack Annika, thank you Annika. Som ni märker, vi kommer tala 2 olika språk här idag. Det blir lite svenska och lite engelska. So that was in English, and I am happy now to introduce Sofia Eriksson Waterskott, who is the Deputy General Director at the European Commission in Brussels at the Directorate for Communications. Since sometimes in Sweden we think we are the only country in the world who tries to attract talents, but we are not surprising. We belong to a bigger market than that. We are a full member of the European Union, and the European Union is working together in many, many questions. One of those initiatives is called Choose Europe, and that's Sofia's going to talk about. Welcome.
Tack. Thank you. So this will be in English, just to prepare. Maybe it's a bit in Swinglish, but I'll try to stick to English, because I am Swedish, but I am using English as my daily language, as I'm sure many of you are doing. Thank you so much, Maria, and thank you for inviting me here, and I'm really curious to hear more about this PhD Academy. It is very much attuned and in line with, indeed, Choose Europe, and I would like to share some thoughts around it. And it is actually quite a good moment, because we are about 1 year after the launch of Choose Europe, so we can look at what type of results we can already observe. And I must say, because many of you here, I believe, are researchers, and you have been mobile, so it's also quite a special year. 2026 is actually we celebrate the 30th anniversary of Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. Perhaps some of you have benefited from that. Is there someone Marie Curie fellow here? So, congratulations. Already an ambassador, I hope, an alumni for sure. So I must say also, I was looking, of course, I am Swedish, I happen to be from Stockholm, so I feel still, after many, many years living abroad, I still feel very much at home here. But looking at, as I know from experience, when we look at the Internet or the European Innovation Scoreboard, and it's quite impressive. I know that Sweden usually is quite high on that ranking. And I looked at the 2025 version. You have a country version and you have a regional version. And as it happens, Sweden is actually still on top of that innovation scoreboard list. And when I looked at the regional one, I was quite surprised, I did not know that Stockholm is the most innovative region across Europe. So now we're talking about, I mean, that is impressive. And I have forgotten how many regions we are, but those of you who are into the NUTS 2 and NUTS 3, you know very well that we talk about many, many regions. So congratulations. But let's start perhaps with a bit of a helicopter perspective, because we live in volatile times, it's to say the least. Let's see what's happening. We have a peace deal, apparently. There is a G7 meeting today in Evian in France, and there are things happening all the time on the global level, and there's a lot of back and forth, geopolitical tensions, you name it. At the same time, we see an incredible technological acceleration of developments. Things go very quickly. What you thought that AI could do 1 month ago, well, probably it has doubled, and they can do many other things today. And who knows what happens 1 month or 6 months ahead. So in that sense, where is Europe in all this? Well, Europe is a key player, of course, but Europe also has a choice. We are facing a choice. Where are we? Where do we situate ourselves in these bigger developments? And you could, of course, say that Europe has a choice. Do we need to take up and step up the ladder and stay in the game, and also in terms of competitiveness? Or do we risk being left behind? I mean, the choice is quite obvious here, I would say. But it is not only an economic choice, and there are economic challenges, but this is also a choice where Europe wants to situate itself in terms of its independence, in terms of resilience, and basically ability to shape its own future. So that's the bigger picture. Now, in this context, of course, it's absolutely essential, and that's what we're going to talk about today, that we need to attract and, as Annika said, also retain talent. This is really a strategic priority. It's a strategic imperative. So if you look at science and competitiveness a bit together, I would say it's fundamentally about freedom. It's about the freedom to learn. It's about the freedom to invent. It's the freedom to cooperate. And free science remains the fuel of progress, as it has done for so many, many years. So science and innovation hold the key to solving many of today's greatest challenges, be it there from health to energy transition, from defense to digital transformation. And you sit, I'm sure, on many of those inventions still maybe already happen and still to come. So Choose Europe, in that sense, is the Commission's very strategic response to all of these challenges. But I should say, and I come from DG Communication, this is not just a campaign, it is not a slogan. It's a real policy behind. And it is a commitment to make Europe the most attractive destination for the world's brightest minds. So when we invest in research, when we simplify mobility, and we do create an ecosystem where talent can thrive, we are actually building Europe's competitive future. So, and let me now, what happened 1 year ago, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, she actually launched Choose Europe at Sorbonne University. It was in May 25. And she said there, Europe must be the continent where universities are pillars of our societies, where innovation serves humanity, and where global talent is welcomed. And the argument, of course, goes that Europe is not just a great place to do research, it's also a great place to build a life. And this is the whole spirit of the spirit behind Choose Europe. Now, science has always been at Europe's core, so that's not something new. And looking at the numbers, we have more than 2 million researchers today across Europe. And what is interesting is to see that, in a way, Choose Europe is already happening. Because if we look at 10 years ago, these numbers of the number of researchers have increased by more than 50%, so this is the trend. So there are already many global talents in Sweden, in Europe. And after all, this is not so surprising, because we have a very nice offer. Europe offers something very unique. We have strong and stable public institutions. We have freedom of research. We have free science. We have high quality of life. And we actually try to put efforts in a long-term investment in research. And of course, we have a long tradition of democracy, and where the rule of law reigns. We have culture of open debate, but we also have good system of social protection, public education, good healthcare, and generally a very welcoming society. So this is part of Europe's strength. And that's where, again, the context of how we can see global talent coming to Europe. Now, 1 year ago, we kicked off Choose Europe. What did we do? We introduced the 5-year contracts through the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action Pilot. So this is a way for researchers to actually plan their lives, not just their next grant, if I may say so. And also the new European Research Council Plus grants was introduced. This offers 7-year funding for visionary research, and it's supposed to give scientists the time to think big, because 7 years is a long time compared to some other grants. And also simplified mobility was on the agenda, because it should be easy that researchers can move between countries and between sectors without bureaucratic barriers. So we started this with a 5 million euro package to retain and attract the best minds. The budget has since then increased. We are actually now close to 900 million, because there are many calls under Marie Curie, under the European Research Council, etc. But also it has been complemented by national and regional efforts, because it's a Team Europe effort. Choose Europe. So it has been complemented by over 100 national and regional schemes, and it represents more than 1 billion euro additional to what has been invested from the Commission side. And let's look at the results. They are so far quite impressive. We have had application records on all of these rounds. So some examples: the ERC advanced grants from outside Europe increased by 4 times. The applications for ERC starting grants from non-EU researchers increased by 50%. ERC consolidated grants from researchers outside the EU increased by 130%. And the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, postdoctoral fellowship applications rose by almost 70%. To give you an idea, we usually have 10,000 applications a year. Now, Marie Curie, we're at 17,000 applications a year. So this is, of course, very positive, and it shows the interest. A little parenthesis, we hope it stays on. You know, there's negotiations about the future EU budget. This is absolutely key, that we keep a strong budget, and certainly for science and innovation. Close parenthesis. So Choose Europe is a bold initiative, and we see that it gives a lot of already good results. So of course we can be happy about that, but we cannot sit down and think that everything is fine, because indeed we managed to attract, but perhaps the budget is not enough, and where are we with the retention? But what we can build on, and this is really to work on our flagship programs, Horizon Europe, you probably know quite well all the Marie Curie and the ERC and so on. But we also have those students who may one day become researchers. So we have Erasmus Plus with all flagship initiatives, and hopefully also with a share of global talent joining. And zooming in a bit on Marie Curie Skłodowska-Curie actions, I said we celebrate 30 years. So I just want to mention the figures. We have, of those 30 years, we have supported, or since then we have supported 150,000 researchers. It's quite a number. That includes 23 Nobel laureates, by the way. And what is interesting, perhaps for you, is that around 40% of MSCA-supported researchers come from outside the EU. So this is already quite a big share. And if we look what has happened to these supported researchers, the vast majority actually remain in Europe after their fellowship. So it is a strong action, and we can really prove that it has impact. So now, what happens in terms of retention, of course, it's not only to come here but we talked about what to do after. I also want to mention, and then I'll stop mentioning European initiatives, but there are so many things happening in your field, so I can't not mention it. But 1 year ago, we also launched the so-called startup and scale-up strategy. This really puts innovation in the heart of our economy. And as you know, and you do it, Europe generates world-class research, clearly. But perhaps sometimes what happens after, the startups ecosystem and even the scale-up system we're perhaps not the best in the world for that. So there are a lot of initiatives that have happened and are happening. For example, a Scale-up Europe fund. It aims at investing in the most promising European companies in strategic tech areas. You also have new startup and scale-up hubs. That is interesting for researchers because it helps researchers to take their ideas from the lab to the market. And you have a new lab to unicorn initiative that will help to build a pan-European network of leading and emerging hubs. So it's a kind of Champions League of startup ecosystems. And why do I mention this? It's because these initiatives do not only attract researchers, but they actually are building the companies where perhaps you or these researchers can find a career. So it's good to keep in mind that talent policy is not separate from competitiveness policy. So if we want to strengthen, if Europe wants to strengthen critical technologies, reduce our dependencies, and basically remain globally relevant, we need the people who can do the science and build the technologies, but also create industries of the future. So Sweden, you know it better probably because there's some time I lived here, but Sweden has exceptional strengths. You have excellent universities, strong innovation capacity, you have a high quality of life, but also international credibility. Now, my argument is this is also a European strength. So the question whether Sweden or Europe can attract talent, well, they both can. I think that's clear. The question is whether attraction is matched by long-term retention. And that's why it's so important with this project and with the conference that you have today to go deeper into this. Now, I don't have the recipe to make it happen, and I will not pretend to, but of course we can imagine that this is not a one-actor-only measure. I think that we say in a lot of things that we do in Europe, we will not be able to do it unless we try to work together and bring different stakeholders, bring actors together. So be it universities, yes, of course, but also the industry. Of course, there are a lot of national, regional authorities, but also Europe can be of help here in the fact that we actually support a lot of this work. We support the excellence on a broad scale, across border, and try to bring down when there are too many differences and fragmentation in the European landscape. So that's why, indeed, we'll come back to that perhaps today. We hope the next Horizon Europe budget will be a good one. We have proposed to double it to 175 billion euros. We're strengthening the European research area. There are a lot of things there still to do. Indeed, I mentioned the fragmentation. And in this context, we really want to create a true single market for knowledge, for research, for talents. So ideas and innovation can flow freely. So you've understood the message. Attracting and retaining global talent is not a side issue. It's really a European priority. So if we want to lead in strategic sectors, well, it means that we must be the place where the best researchers and innovators choose to come and also choose to stay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sofia. Interesting to hear, and good to hear that we are on the good path forward, I think. Så, då har vi kommit till en punkt när vi ska redovisa projektet Stockholm PhD Academy. Och that presentation will be made by my colleague, Samantha Julia. Please, come on stage. Who has been the project manager for this, the work they've done. Yay! Welcome.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And whether you're here or online, we're very happy to have you with us. Sweden is often presented as an attractive destination for international researchers. Here we have a high quality of life, great research environment, and also good work-life balance. However, attracting talent is one thing, but making sure that once they're here, they have all the support that they need, that's a different one. As my colleague said, my name is Samantha, and for the past year, I've been managing the Stockholm PhD Academy. And today, I'd like to explain what we've done and why, how it went, and I also want to paint a picture of PhD's experience here in Sweden and what we can do to better support them here. And the reason we're here today is that Sweden wants talent to stay. About 2 years ago, the government launched the Work in Sweden initiative. And that one is coordinated by the Swedish Agency for Economic and Regional Growth, and you might know them as Tillväxtverket. And the goal is to attract, establish, and retain highly qualified international talent and other foreign workers. We submitted an application, got the funding, and I've had the chance of working with this since. The Stockholm PhD Academy was created with the goal of tapping into and retaining the international talent that is already here in Sweden. And more specifically, we focused on PhD students in Stockholm. As I said, Sweden has a strong and attractive image internationally, and people do choose to come here. But once they arrive, there is still a lot for them to navigate. Being an international in Sweden can be quite challenging. You often arrive here with little to no personal and professional network. You don't know the social norms. You may not be familiar with the Swedish labor market. And there's also a whole new language to navigate. But on top of that, for our target group, there's the PhD layer. They are talented and smart people with considerable needed skills, but translating those skills from academia to industry can be quite difficult. So supporting them in navigating the Swedish labor market is crucial if we want them to stay. Also, if we zoom out a bit further, there's a clear investment perspective to be had. Educating one single PhD student costs about 5 million Swedish crowns. In Stockholm alone, there's about 2,200 of them. So in total, this represents about 11 billion Swedish crowns that risk being underutilized if they leave because they cannot enter the labor market. The thought behind the Stockholm PhD Academy was to create a program that would bridge academia and the labor market while also building a sense of community. The project was dividing into 2 phases, one in the fall and one in the spring. The one in the fall was focused on information and awareness, and it was then followed by a smaller and more intensive phase that focused on career development. Regarding the participants in our project, we're very pleased by the diversity of them. In total, we had 220 participants. They came from 61 countries across the world, represented 9 universities here in Stockholm, and they were all here with us in our events in Stockholm. So what did we do in the fall? We organized a series of large lectures that were hosted at different universities here. We went to Karolinska Institutet, Stockholm University, as well as KTH Royal Institute of Technology. The lecture's topic ranged from Stockholm business landscape and career opportunities beyond academia to Swedish history and culture. They also learned about trade unions, networking, and different pathways within academia. And while some of these topics may seem a bit unrelated to career at first glance, they all serve the same purpose, and that was to help them understand Swedish society and working life better, while also increasing their confidence in building a future here. For the spring portion of our project, we did things differently. We decided to choose depth over scale and deliver something that would be more personal. So 48 participants out of the original 220 group were selected to join a more intensive and exclusive career program. It was delivered twice in 2 separate 5-week cohorts of 23 to 25 participants. They also met twice per week, and it was always after their working hours to best accommodate them. We also took an holistic approach when it came to designing the program. It's strongly inspired by another project we run for accompanying partners of international staff at universities in Stockholm, as well as a few companies. And we know that that model works very well for that specific target group, and we were curious to see if it would also work well for the PhD students. So part of the program was focused on understanding the labor market and the opportunities available outside of academia. They learned about labor market trends, they met with a recruiter, and also met with various professionals from different sectors. We also invited previous PhD graduates, internationals, that shared their experience about finding a job here in Stockholm, because we thought it was important for them to meet people they could rely to. Another important part was helping them understand their own skills and how to communicate them. So they received career coaching, CV and LinkedIn workshops, personal reflection exercises, and that helped them identify their strength, what motivates them, and how their experience as researcher can be translated into different career paths. And also because career development is not just about finding employment, we also decided to have sessions on entrepreneurship, stress management, and confidence. The goal was not only to help participants find opportunities, but also help them feel more confident in navigating the Swedish labor market and what can be a very uncertain period of their life. One thing, as I said, that we were interested in was to know whether it would work well on this target group. And looking at our data, it seems to be yes. At the bottom there, you can see that their confidence in finding a job went on average from 5.1 out of 10 to 7.5 out of 10. So that's a good increase. 92% of them reported a higher confidence in finding employment, and the remaining 8% stayed on the same level. When it comes to feedback, overall it was very positive, both for the fall and the spring. From the fall, the participants mentioned thinking it was important and insightful information. And they also appreciate having the chance to meet other people like them from different universities and disciplines. One of them even said that it made her want to stay in Sweden even more, which is always nice and encouraging to hear. Regarding the spring portion, there's 3 themes that stood out. First, they valued the practical career support, the opportunity to reflect on their skills and future plans, and the sense of community that they built throughout the program. Of course, this is a pilot project, so there were also suggestions for improvement. They asked for more hands-on activities, such as mock interviews, personalized support regarding their disciplines, and also more in-depth information when it comes to labor market trends and also migration processes. I'm really happy to say that we will continue with this project in the fall with only the career program, and these feedback will all be integrated as we plan for it. However, we did find a few challenges. First, reaching out PhD students turned out to be a lot more difficult than we thought. For the fall session, we actually had to manually search for them on the university's webpage and then email them because we couldn't get to them. But that ended up being quite time-consuming, as you can imagine. And it also means that we weren't able to meet all of them. Attendance was another big challenge for us. PhD students are a very busy group, and attending our program meant competing with lab work, conference, deadline, and so not everyone was able to attend every session, both in the spring and in the fall. As I said, we did hold all our sessions in the evening, but that while it helped with accessibility, it also made energy level and engagement a bit shaky at times. But that's understandable after a long day of work. Another important point was that we had a very diverse group in terms of disciplines and PhD stages, and that is because initially we wanted to focus on early stage PhDs but in the end, since we couldn't find them, we invited everyone. But that also meant that it was difficult to make each session equally relevant for everyone. And finally, some of the challenges that were raised by participants around immigration are structural issues that go beyond what a program like ours can do. And that's not something we can solve on our own. So we each all have a part to play, but I will come back to that. Looking at both phases of the project, there's a few key lessons that stood out. First, smaller groups clearly work better for this type of program. The spring cohort confirmed that participation becomes more active and discussions are deeper, and they're also more engaged when the format is more intimate. So future programs should continue to prioritize smaller cohorts and more interactive formats. Second, attendance is closely linked to timing, structure, and formal support. Even when participants value the content, their obligation makes it harder for them to attend everything. We saw that participation worked better when it was formally accepted and supported by their supervisors. So this points to the importance of involving them, the supervisors, from the start, and also maybe consider how these type of programs could be integrated into PhD structure, instead of being something that is on top of everything else. Another clear insight was the importance of community. Across both phases, participants consistently highlighted how valuable it was for them to meet people in similar situations, share their experience with them, vent when it was needed, and just create their own network. And for many, this sense of community was equally as important as the career support they got. And so community should not be seen as a side effect, but rather as a core objective of this type of program. And finally, they asked for more hands-on and practical support. While they appreciated the information and guidance that they got, they were much more interested in concrete tools and real-world practice. So this is something we will also apply. Now, after being in touch with many PhD students over the past year, hearing their experience and challenges in Sweden, we decided that it would be good to better understand their situation. And specifically, we wanted to know the type of support that they need and the factors influencing whether they stay in Sweden or decide to leave after their studies. So to do so, we sent out a survey to our participants, the group of 220, and we got a response rate of about 30%. Before looking at the findings, I just want to briefly present a sample that we had. Most of the participants had been living in Sweden for 3 to 5+ years, as you can see. There was a smaller portion that had been here for 1 to 3 years, and then there was a small handful that arrived this fall. They were really newcomers. 60% of them are from outside the European Union, which obviously affects their experience in Sweden. It has implication about residence permit and long-term stability. And finally, the sample was dominated by participants from natural and life science, but we also had respondents from engineering, social sciences, and the humanities. Now, we can look briefly at their career ambitions. 53% of them hope to work in the industry sector, while 16% would rather be in academia. And then a third is unsure. Interestingly, 43% had no preferences between public, private, and startup sector, while nearly a third expressed an interest in the public sector. This is important because international PhD students can be perceived as having more of a narrow career ambitions, being really focused on something. But our results suggest otherwise. Most respondents were open to different sectors and career paths, and that indicates that the challenge is not a lack of willingness to explore the opportunities, but perhaps having access to them. Something that has become very clear is that they like being here, but they're unsure whether they can stay or not. When asked about their PhD experience, 74% of them were very satisfied with their studies and research environment. Sweden was also seen as an attractive destination for doctoral studies, with 68% of the participants rating Sweden's attractiveness between an 8 and a 10 out of 10. This is good news for Sweden. Another important finding is that 69% of them can see a future for themselves here in Sweden. In other words, they like the country, they value their experience here, and they would like to stay. The question is then, where is the uncertainty from? We can begin by looking at career support. So despite being satisfied with their PhD experience overall, participants reported much lower levels of satisfaction with the guidance available to them at their universities. In fact, as you can see, 60% of the respondents rated that support between a 0 and a 5 out of 10. And this doesn't mean that universities are not providing support. It may be that existing services are difficult to find, maybe it doesn't match the needs of the participants, or it simply does not reach them. But regardless of the reason, our results point to a clear gap between the support available and the support that they feel they are receiving. The main theme that appeared again and again, though, regarding that uncertainty in staying in Sweden is quite simple, and it's the transition from academia to the labor market. Having a professional network in Sweden is crucial when it comes to finding a job, but that is obviously something that is difficult to do when you're an international here, especially if you're already working full-time on your research. 60% of our participants reported not having access to the professional network they need to find a job. And I've already said that they can see a future for themselves here, so the motivation is not the problem. Navigating the job market is. We also asked them if they had already been looking for jobs, and 37% of them said yes. Of those who said yes, most of them had been in Sweden for 3 to 5 years, which can indicate that these are the ones nearing the end of their PhDs. And their main challenge has by far been getting interviews. But other ones that were named were understanding the recruitment process, finding relevant opportunities, and knowing how to present themselves on CVs and cover letters. And these are all issues that are quite easily fixed and that we've been working with in our program. However, one of the strongest themes was also the perception that employers do not always understand what a PhD actually means in terms of competence. Several participants felt that they are viewed as students rather than professional. They also felt that their skills are not always recognized or valued in the recruitment process. And as you can see on the screen, there's terms that are skills in academia and how they can be translated into industry. So for example, peer review can be seen as quality assurance, and this is the type of thing that should be in their CVs or that employers should realize so that they can be hired. Interestingly, participants rarely spoke only about technical expertise. Many also highlighted qualities such as adaptability, resilience, and independence. One participant put it as such: "We are adaptable and willing to take risk. We are brave. We move to another country having nothing or anyone." These are all skills to have and that employers seek, yet the participant described them as being overlooked in their case. Their commitment to Sweden was also highlighted as something they felt employers sometimes misunderstood. They chose to be here, many want to stay, and yet they feel seen more as short-term investment rather than a potential long-term employee. One of them wrote, "There is a misconception that we are not invested in the country and will inevitably leave." And this creates a double challenge, because PhD students often struggle to translate their skills into industry terms and frame their experience in a way that employers can resonate with, while on the other side, employers sometimes fail to recognize and value that experience. Several respondents described feeling caught between being overqualified for some position while lacking the industry experience requested for others. And what emerges from that is that international PhD students struggle how to enter the labor market, how to build a network, and how to translate their experience into something employers can recognize. But of course, there's also a broader obstacle to whether they remain in Sweden or decide to stay. So while the transition in the labor market emerged as the main challenge, it's not the only factor influencing whether they stay or go. We asked our participants to rate a number of potential obstacles to staying in Sweden. Unsurprisingly, the labor market ranked highest with 95, considering it an important or very important factor to remaining in Sweden, so finding a job, basically. Residence permits were another major concern, particularly for those from outside the European Union. So if we excluded those for whom the question was not applicable, then 80% of them considered residence permit a very important issue. Several respondents also linked recent changes in migration policies to a growing sense of uncertainty about their future in Sweden. However, as it was mentioned, just last week there were new rules that were adopted, so we're going in the right direction on that front. Language was also frequently mentioned. More than 2/3 of the respondents viewed Swedish as an important barrier to employment. At the same time, several of them emphasized that the issue is not a lack of willingness to learn. One of them wrote, "If given the opportunity and time, we will learn the language." And this highlights a challenge that many international PhDs are facing. It's balancing language learning with their obligations as full-time researchers. Housing in the media is also often highlighted as one of the main challenges facing international talent. But as you can see, our picture is slightly more nuanced. Half of the respondents consider it a very important obstacle, while the other one did not. And finally, access to direct flights to their home country ranked last, with only 18% of them thinking it was important. So taken together, these findings suggest that retention is not driven by a single issue. It's shaped by a combination of professional, social, and structural factors. And among those, the role of community deserves a closer look. That's why I haven't said anything about that yet. Yes. Perhaps the most striking, no. Yes, sorry. One of the strongest themes throughout the survey was the importance of community and belonging. Not a single respondent rated community and network as unimportant, and more than half of them considered it a very important factor. When asked about their sense of belonging in Sweden, respondents generally reported a moderate sense of belonging. As you can see, 58% rated it between a 6 and an 8 out of 10. And while those who had been in Sweden for the longest typically felt a bit more connected to the country, living in Sweden for several years does not mean always feeling at home here. In fact, only a very small portion reported a strong sense of belonging. 5% rated it between a 9 and a 10 out of 10. That's because there is so much more to belonging than just time itself. Building a life somewhere new requires more than just a number of years. It requires relationships, routines, feeling supported and welcomed, and also feeling like you're part of something that's bigger than just your work. Several participants spoke about the importance of friendship and social connection in shaping their experience of Sweden. Someone wrote quite simply, "I like Sweden more as I know more people." Perhaps the most striking finding emerged when we asked participants whether there were reasons for which they would leave Sweden even if they had a job. And family consideration, without surprise, ranked the highest. However, the second strongest theme was community and social integration. Several respondents mentioned loneliness, difficulties building friendship, and the feeling that Swedish society is just difficult to access as an outsider. One participant captured this particularly well. "I currently have a good social network, but if it were to fall apart, I would definitely leave Sweden, even if I had a job. It's your social connections that make you feel at home." I think this is a particularly powerful quote because it challenges the idea that retention is primarily an employment issue, but it's not. A job may be what brings people to Sweden, but it's the relationship and their community that is making them stay. With our project, we tried to do both, and it has been one of the most appreciated aspects of the program. Throughout the survey, community appeared as a barrier, as a reason to stay, and as a reason to leave. It became clear that professional and social integration cannot be separated. Both are essential if international PhD students are to build a future here in Sweden. What does that future look like then? As I said earlier, 69% of our participants can see a future for themselves here. And that is despite all of the challenges that I've just named. So it shows that they're not actively planning to leave, they just want to know how to stay. However, their willingness to stay should not be taken for granted. 81% of our respondents said that they would leave Sweden within a year or less if they do not find a job after their degrees. And this highlights just how important the transition after the PhD period can be. Finding employment, building networks, and understanding the labor market, that all takes time. However, for many of them, the window in which they can realistically do that is quite short. And that is why supporting them during the PhD is crucial, because not supporting them is almost like pushing them away. Retention is not necessarily about convincing people to stay. Many already want to. The challenge is ensuring that they receive the support, opportunities, and stability they need during a critical transition period. This support and stability can come from different actors. We specifically asked them what Sweden, the government, and universities could do better to support them and encourage them to stay. Regarding Sweden, the most frequent recommendation was to simplify and stabilize pathways to permanent residence and citizenship. Participants repeatedly highlighted the importance of predictability and long-term security. Many also felt that Sweden does a good job at attracting highly educated individuals, but could do better when it comes to retaining them once they're here. There is more work to be done when it comes to opening doors between international talent and employers. One of the participants wrote, "Convince companies that international students are valuable." The Work in Sweden initiative, which our project is a part of, already has pilots on that topic, so we're going in the right direction. When it comes to universities, the responses reflected a broader feeling of being unprepared for what comes after the PhD. Many participants felt well supported as researchers, but much less so when it came to navigating career beyond academia and understanding the Swedish labor market. Respondents repeatedly called for stronger career support, better connections with employers, greater visibility of non-academic career path, and more support during that transition period into employment. Several also highlighted the need for better communication of existing services and also more opportunities to learn Swedish. Interestingly, several respondents directly referred to our project, the Stockholm PhD Academy, when it comes to what should be done in the future. Comments included, "Create programs like this one," and "I get to see real people who care. It's why this program has been so beneficial." Talent retention is not just a Stockholm issue, it's a Sweden issue, and such program could be very useful to implement in other cities across the country. So taken together, it shows that international PhD students are not only looking for information, they're looking for practical support, meaningful connection, and guidance during a critical period of their life. After a year of working on this project and reading through all the survey responses and speaking with all the participants, it became very clear that they're here to build a life and not just find a job. Throughout the survey, participants repeatedly described challenges that relate to employment, residence permit, language, professional network, belonging. These factors are closely connected, and it all influences whether people stay or go. So retention is not a single issue with a single solution. It's shaped by a combination of professional, structural, social factors. Career support matters because the transition into the labor market remains one of the biggest challenges participants are facing. Community matters because a sense of belonging influences whether people see a future here for themselves or not. And systems matter because some barriers, particularly around the labor market access and residence permit, extend beyond what universities and support programs like ours can do. Universities, employers, policymakers, and organizations like ours, we all have a role to play. When we started this project, the goal was simple. It was to help international PhD students understand Sweden, the labor market, and the opportunities that are available to them here. Throughout the project, one thing became very clear. Supporting international PhD students is not only about career. It's also about helping people build connection, confidence, and a sense of belonging. What gives me hope is that these participants, they want to stay. They're not asking for Sweden to convince them to remain here. They're just asking for opportunities to succeed in Sweden. And for me, that's perhaps the most important finding of them all. Because retention is not just about helping people find work, it's about helping them build a life. Thank you.
Tack Samantha. Nu har ni fått någonting att smälta. You have something to digest for our 15-minute break. Right now, there will be bottles of water served outside, and you can bring the water back here if you want after. So please come back in 15 minutes and listen to, you're now going to meet real international PhD students. Exciting. för många liksom som har samma fråga. Då är det en sån gruppering där många liksom föräldrar som ställer, man kan bjuda till deras företag, alltså de viktigaste.
Ja, men det har vi ju
Anything? Hello? Hey, hey. Good.
Yeah, that was what I wanted. I wanted to
Great. Yeah.
Would you like to present them, or should I just say the first? So, welcome back after the break. This will be the first of 2 panel discussions. And in this first, you will meet 6 international PhD students who have been part of our talent program. And lead this discussion will Christina Neofutu, who is herself a former PhD student who making her life and career in Stockholm. So, welcome.
Yay. All right, hopefully you can hear me well. I can hear in the room that it sounds good, and also online. Thank you for joining us here today in person, and also greetings to those who listen to us online. My name, as you heard, is Christina Neofutu. I myself was a PhD student at Karolinska Institutet only 2.5 years ago, and I was in the Department of Neuroscience. I experienced exactly what you experience, and I also sympathize a lot with what we heard previously from Samantha, and as results from the survey, which I know probably many of you also answered. And I decided to stay in Sweden after the completion of my PhD and work in the industry, so I also made the transition that scares a lot of people. So there's a lot, of course, to bring to the discussion from my part, but I would like to first hear from each and every one of you what discipline you work with, which university you are performing your PhD in, and also if you would like to share where you came from before you came to Sweden. I myself came from Greece. I'm originally from Greece. And it's been around 10 years that I've been living in Sweden. So maybe we can hear first from David. Exactly.
Can you hear me? Yes. I'm happy to be here. It's so nice to see so many faces that I know from the Stockholm PhD Academy. I'm from Ecuador, in the middle of the world. Mm-hmm. It's the sunniest country, so it's the opposite of Sweden.
Yeah. Believe me.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. I study in Stockholm University. I'm in my 3rd year. I'm in the Department of Physical Geography. I work with satellites, so we're trying to analyze water in Sweden, lakes and rivers. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Riccardo, and I am from Italy. I study in Italy, both the bachelor and the master, and then I've decided to come to Stockholm for an Erasmus internship. And then after the Erasmus internship, I decided to do the PhD here. And my field, I am a PhD student in Karolinska Institutet, and I work in the interface between molecular biology and genomics. And yes, I am really happy to be here with you today.
Hello, my name is Julia, and I'm from Germany originally. I do my PhD at Stockholm University and at Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich as a co-tutel PhD student. And I came to Sweden for my master's in performance studies, and I liked it a lot, and I'm still sitting here today after many years. And yeah.
Hi, my name is Sendrik Quast. I'm also from Germany, and I come from the field of devised theater and came here to do an artistic PhD at Stockholm University of the Arts. And my field is performative and media-based studies, and the specific field is acting or devised theater.
Hello, everybody. My name is Evelyn. I'm from Peru. I've been in Sweden since 2018. I came here to study my master. Then I follow up with my PhD studies. Well, I'm from the Swedish Defense University, and well, I focus on studying the power relations of the outer space sector in the global south countries like Peru.
Hi, I'm Antoine. I've been doing a PhD in finance here at the Stockholm School of Economics. I'm originally from Belgium. I moved here for the PhD, and now I'm trying to transition to industry, which is why I participated. Thank you for having us.
And there is a second one, so keep it there. Great. So maybe we can start this discussion, and obviously in order to participate in the Stockholm PhD Academy, you had some ideas and expectations for what this could bring to you. And I would like to first ask if you had concerns and challenges during your PhD, concerning, of course, your career choice after the PhD, and which ones were they? Maybe you could start, David.
Yeah, so I'm in my third year of PhD. Of course, I'm thinking, what do I do after the PhD? And the main concerns that I have is that what I'm going to do, if I'm going to do the academy, or if I'm going to do the industry, or if I'm going to do a startup. But I haven't found a clear path of what I want to do, what tools are there in the market for me to follow. Mm-hmm. There's so many layers of problem in this, because it's, I'm also a PhD, but I'm also an immigrant in another country. So it's also the social part that Samantha just showed, mm-hmm. because perfectly represented what I feel about that. And I think sometimes we don't feel that we are here or seen in the country. So I think projects as this is perfect for that. And just coming here and seeing all of you interested to hear what we want to say is just amazing. So yeah.
Great, thank you for sharing. Exactly, Ricardo, maybe then you could talk about when you were envisioning a future doing a PhD, and of course you obviously applied in Sweden to come to Sweden. What were the expectations that you had for your future after your PhD? And maybe you could share if after now some time during your PhD, things have matured and maybe some things may have changed.
Okay. So I am in the fourth year of my PhD. Mm-hmm. When I started the PhD, I had my mind was quite prone to stay in academia. Also after the PhD. Then, PhD is challenging, of course, but I am also thinking, I really like what I am doing, but I am also start thinking, about, I don't know, maybe leaving also academia, having this kind of possibility, try to look into the labor market, how the labor market is here. And so, yeah, now, as I said, I am in the fourth year. I need to start, I am thinking about what to do. So I think the main challenge now for me is to decide to stay in academia or to go to the private sector. What's my expectations, so my initial dream when I started the PhD is trying to do more or less the same things that I'm doing the PhD, but also in a company sector. Mm-hmm. And this I know that there are especially big companies like Novartis. I am in the life science sector, so I can give that kind of experience. So basically, big companies like Novartis or AstraZeneca, they offer position that they are for postdocs or after PhD studies that you can apply your research skills also in a company, in private industry. And this, when I started in PhD, and also right now, I can say, is my dream, what I'm thinking about to do. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. I was actually thinking maybe I can ask Julia, because you already said you came as a master's student, and I also started with a master's. First of all, what did Sweden do well then to retain you for a PhD? And now that you have been doing a PhD for some time, what do you think that Sweden should continue doing to retain you after your PhD? Maybe it's a bit of a tough question.
I don't think it's tough at all. One thing that Sweden did do well, or that I have to say, it sounds like I'm doing an advertisement. I'm not. Stockholms Akademiska Forum did really well. Is when I arrived at the airport, there were volunteers. There was a bus that picked us up and drove us to the university, and we were taken on tours through the city, on tours to IKEA to buy some furniture. And that was my first contact as a master's student with Sweden, or with a Swedish institution organization, and that was so incredibly welcoming.
Yeah.
And therefore I think that programs like the PhD Academy are so important, because they give us who come to a new country, who don't have maybe a vast private and professional network, they give us like a space where we feel seen and where we get supported. And I think it's amazing that Stockholms Akademiska Forum does that. And I think in a political climate where immigrants are not necessarily seen as an asset or something positive and more as a threat, I think it's really important that there's programs that welcome international talent into Sweden. And for example, during the PhD Academy, the region of Stockholm and the city of Stockholm, amongst many others, they've really gone out of their way to make us feel included and welcome us into their space and share their knowledge with us. And that makes a huge difference. It's really not only symbolical, it's something that, for me, that's something that really feels...
That you made the right
welcoming.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and I can understand then actually the results that Samantha showed. Community, the sense of community and feeling of belonging is really important. Even just the moment that you step your foot in the country. And it's important, of course, that it continues to stay this way. And you said you felt welcome when you came. And do you feel like you're supported right now? And do you feel that after the end of your PhD, you will have the same type of welcome feeling? Or do you have a concern about this?
That's maybe a bit of a tougher question. I certainly feel welcomed by this program. I feel welcomed by the region of Stockholm, the city of Stockholm. I think that the discourse there is right now on immigrants in Sweden is not necessarily feeling us welcomed. And I'm also saying that in solidarity with people that are not necessarily highly educated global talent as we are sitting here being very privileged. Yeah. And that's a development that has been going on since I came here, and that is really saddening, I have to say. Yeah. And the Sweden that I'm living in now is a different Sweden than the Sweden I came to 8 years ago.
I can definitely sympathize with exactly what you're saying, because arriving 10 years ago, it definitely felt more welcome for international students and immigrants, and there's definitely differences if you come from Europe and if you come from outside of Europe in how secure you feel about being able to stay. And of course, policies that make it hard to obtain visas for work are very, very difficult. Of course, Samantha has said that this isn't something that the program can necessarily influence. But it is really important to bring to the table.
I think one thing, even though the program cannot do anything about formalia or so, what it really does well is bring together different people, and not only while in the program discussing how we want to develop in our careers, but also on the way to the metro, being able to talk with the others and be like, oh yeah, how was your experience with this, or I feel like this and that. And I think that is such an important aspect of the program as well.
Absolutely. Great. Yeah, maybe we can grab the other microphone and we can continue the discussion. I think actually, Julia, you kind of hinted to the next question I have, which is how would you brand doing a PhD in Sweden? And is it what recruited you here? Is it similar to what actually recruited you here? So for example, I can bring an example from my side. I saw a lot of materials from blogs and from Stockholm's Akademiska Forum actually online that said most Swedes speak English. It's a very international place. There's a lot of jobs to do after your PhD. An ecosystem of many universities and many things like that. So did you have a specific idea about how it will look like when you do a PhD in Sweden, and has it met your expectations? Hendrik.
Okay, that's a complicated question. I think I'm not able to answer it now. Has anybody of you an idea right away? I have to think about it a little bit.
Of course, of course.
Well, for me, my experience was like when I finished my master, I was trying to figure out what to do, because actually I didn't have a plan at all. Like I just finished the master and I wanted to stay. So kind of this job process started earlier in that moment. I found the PhD as a way of like, I don't know, I couldn't find any other job. So I was like, okay, this is a path that I can follow. So I didn't have that much expectation about the PhD. But I think in the process I have learned, hearing also from other PhD students from other parts of the world, that this is not considered a job in other places, in other countries. And here we have those benefits. And I think that's great, because for me at least, there is not a worry, like in the sense of like finding funds to do my research, or like worrying about if like to have an income or like cover the cost of living here. I know that also varies for different students, because I know we have a low salary in that sense. But then also I found this other side of the PhD that is a lot of being alone if you're like managing your own project, and how mentally difficult it could be, because it's a 4 or 5 year program that you are like basically with this one project, at least in my case, and then you have moments where you love it, moments where you hate it, moments where you say like, okay, maybe if I change this in a different way. Like there is all those, I like to call it like a roller coaster of emotions. So yeah, I think that's a big challenge, and I think like I didn't expect that it could be also so personal, and so much of taking that part of me, no? But yeah, I think like that part, it's something that nobody guides you. At least you are with other PhD students that also tells you that they had this emotional crisis before. So you don't feel like that part of community is also really important in that sense, no?
Do you think it would have helped before you started a PhD if the voices of PhD students were more amplified, if you had the chance to speak to other PhD students about what it's really like?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. It's I didn't meet that many PhD students, so I didn't know actually what I was like going for. I know that I had the motivation for the topic. I had the motivation. It goes with the things that I believe, my values. Like that was the main thing. But I didn't expect how challenging it would be. And it definitely, if I knew more people, and maybe that's how, if you have maybe more preparation, like you have like this networking of other people, and you like digging into that could prevent or maybe think more of like how to manage that. And also during the years, I think that's also really important to have that support. Yeah, you have that community, but also I think that the university also have maybe these workshops or like this space also to talk about these things, because you're gonna be doing this for this amount of years, no?
Yeah.
So it's mental health. It's also really important. Adding to the migration situation, like because you're an immigrant as well, so you have your family and friends in this other country, and then you're also building your own family and friends here. So it's just you're having all these things to think about. You know, it's kind of dividing in that sense. So it's just many things to take into consideration when you're an immigrant and working abroad. No?
Apparently, Samantha said it's very hard to find the PhD students, so...
Yes, yeah.
So we need to do better at that. But I think, for example, programs like this that can bring PhD students together, and maybe other programs that can bring master students to talk to PhD students, or other professionals who may already be working and be considering to do a PhD. It would be very nice if we can have programs like this to bring each other together and discuss before you do make this huge commitment. The median time for completion for a PhD is over 5 years, even though the programs are said to be 4 years. So first of all, that's one expectation that we should have heard about. That it actually might be longer than what you think, and it how transformative this experience can be. You definitely need to grow personally and balance a life in a new place, as you said, with no support network most of the time, or build your own support network, an IKEA support network, and developing several skills along the way. So then maybe I could go back to Henrik, and I could ask about the skills that you felt like you developed during your PhD. Do you feel well equipped to, first of all, communicate the breadth of skills that you have developed? And do you think that employers know enough about actually how much you developed during your PhD?
I think first of all, and this was also the reason why the first question was so hard to answer, because I always have the feeling that I have to first of all say that I'm an artistic PhD, and this differs a little from other PhDs. Also because I do my PhD part-time, because I still am in touch with the field, let's say, and I continue to be in touch with the field. So I also do the PhD within 6 years and not within 4. So I think there are many differences, but I would say because I'm also a little bit older, I started the PhD with 38, which is like quite common for artistic PhDs.
What's your skincare
routine?
That's an interesting question.
Okay, forget about the panel.
Yeah, maybe we don't have enough time about that.
During the just the break, just the break.
But good comment. So, and I think so I came from the field of being a theater maker, and developing a lot of projects and developing projects deadline-based. And I think I had a skill of project management, I would say, that I could also adapt quite easily to a PhD project. But the biggest challenge for me was, of course, that now I had to do a project that is 5 years or 6 years long, and not only 3 months long. And I think there I already felt like a big change in how I could, or a big challenge how to apply this skill set to another project scale, or also to another project duration. And but I think
what I learned through more also the structural side of the PhD, also being involved in a lot of committees and being involved in like a PhD student union that we found just this year, was like how to navigate in these higher education institutions, and how to like also work on structural questions and how to adapt, because in the arts we have a lot of like critical knowledge and a lot of like freedom that we use to articulate specific societal problems, but then there's the question of how to also translate this back into structures, for example. And there I think I very much benefited from like also the Swedish institution that I am working in, to learn a lot how this could look like, or how to do this, and I'm very, very happy about that. Just to give an example, because in the arts we are like much more short-term solution finding, and I think these higher education institutions offer us some kind of like a long-term visionary approach that helps like translating like problems into structures. And this is
but I think your experience is very interesting, and actually maybe a little bit unique, because you come from, let's say, the employer side, and you're adapting to the student side. So you have seen both worlds, which is maybe not something that many PhD students can relate. A lot of the PhD students, at least that I have talked to and are my friends, have only been studying until it's time to enter the job market. And then it's very scary, and you might not, there might be no one around you that has this experience. Everyone may have the same wonders and worries. So I think, would you recommend that someone actually finishes studies, works, then takes on a PhD? I think that there's a misconception that it needs to be done at a certain time point in life.
I mean, it really depends on the discipline, I would say, and what that market or the industry or the field demands. If the fields allows this like experience of working in between, I would say it's very good to work and have work experience in between before starting a PhD, because that can influence the PhD and also the research question and all the, like, let's say, also the directionality and also of the PhD. To whom do I want to also like speak with my research, and also maybe the positionality of the researcher, him or herself or themselves, is clearer, because this is like probably a problem of the artistic PhD more or less, also that the positionality and who are you as a researcher is a very important question. But I say for artistic PhD it's definitely important to work.
I would say it's also, if you do a PhD in science and other disciplines, when you have grown as a person, I mean, coming from the side as a scientist, I definitely came out of my PhD as a different scientist than what I started. And thankfully, a better one and a more ethical one, asking the right questions and thinking about implementation more than I did before. You, Lacey, you raise your hand, so maybe you want to say something?
Yeah, I think it also, it's a structural difference. So Henrik and I are both from Germany. We both studied at the same institute for our bachelors, or like not for your bachelor, but for your diploma. But there in Germany, we don't have CSN, we don't have the same support for students. So to work besides studying, it's kind of a given. You just have to do it. And I think for me personally, it was also really good. I was working in theater and performing arts, and that was just what I wanted to do 24/7. And I wouldn't have it any other way now, like having all that knowledge.
But of course, it would have been, I would assume, better if it was your choice and it wasn't that you needed this in order to be able to support yourself, right? Or would you? Or do you think you wouldn't choose it if it wasn't necessary?
I mean, you know, in the performing arts, you don't necessarily earn a lot of money or any money, so maybe it wasn't that necessary, just in some projects. So I think for me, it really was a choice. I did. Yeah, there was no other possibility. But I think that was also, I was so fascinated by that when, like being in the PhD academy, and there I was talking to another colleague there, and she described how, wow, this is amazing. I've never thought about this. I've never been outside of the academy.
Can we change the microphone? Let's see.
But we had really different experiences in that case, and I think both are valuable in their own way. And the program worked for both of us, because even though I already knew where I'm coming from and where I want to go, I felt empowered to continue that path.
Great. Now, speaking of where we want to go, maybe I could hear from you, Antoine. And what is your perception of the Swedish labor market? Obviously, you also did the program. Maybe we can start with, how is your perception before you started the program, and if it has changed now?
I'd say, well, the difficulty, I guess, is when you do a PhD and you transition back to industry, it's a lot of uncertainty, right? I think in essence, it's very much like a career change. When you go through a PhD, almost everyone expects to stay in academia. That's why you do the PhD in the first place, most of the time, I suppose. So when that decision comes of, okay, you go back to industry, it's very much like a career change all over again, which makes it very uncertain, very comes with some anxiety about what's going to happen. So I'd say I was, fairly anxious about it, not in a bad way, but before doing the program. I think afterwards, there was, good and bad in a sense. I think, in essence, what the program did really well was give us an awareness of what the Swedish market is like. On the unfortunate side, the Swedish market relies a lot on network. So now I know that...
I should network.
Exactly. I have to know the right people, or I have to search for a longer time than I would have to elsewhere. Well, that's unfortunate, but that's not the program's fault. I think, in essence, it's good to know what you're going to be up against. Information is always valuable. I think on the positive side, the program was good at giving us the confidence to go against that market. I mean, it's been said before, but it's a lot of that anxiety about going back to industry is due to it being hard translating what you did during the PhD, the skills you learned, into industry language and into competences that you can apply elsewhere. And that's the program helped a lot with. And I just wanted to follow up also on the previous question. I also worked before the PhD, and I think that was very valuable, if only to know what's out there. And I couldn't imagine having, only studied up until this point, because then I think the uncertainty would be absolutely enormous. I mean, I kind of know what to expect when I go back to searching for a job, and I have a rough idea of how it's going to be, and
Did you also work in your home country or another country, or did you work in Sweden before your PhD?
No, in Belgium.
How do you think it compares, the labor market, from your home country to Sweden? You already hinted, for example, that it is true that network is really important in the Swedish job market. Do you feel like it's similar in Belgium, or in other countries you may have been considering to move after your PhD?
I don't think the network matters as much in Belgium. Of course, it always matters to some extent. But I think Sweden is an extreme case on that matter. There's a bit of a similar situation in that in Belgium, I mean, this is a multilingual country, and so often you're asked to speak French, Dutch, and English.
All right.
Which sometimes can be a bit of a problem. So here, having to learn Swedish is kind of a familiar issue. yeah, about where was your question about where I would go if I couldn't find work here? Or?
Yeah, that's a good thing to answer as well.
I don't know. I think, Europe is a good place to be. I'd probably stay there in Europe. But otherwise than that, I don't know. Sweden is the objective, I guess.
Sweden is the place. I think maybe the program convinced you. Great. We can also have a little bit more free discussion. I mean, now everybody has been given the chance to be heard a little bit, so I'll ask some questions, and you can, the one that feels more strongly about answering, please grab the microphone. Let's have it a little bit more as a dialogue. So maybe we can hear from everyone, actually. Would you want to stay in Sweden after your PhD? Would you consider somewhere else? Would this be in Europe or other continents? Yeah? Grab this one. I think it's working.
Okay, so I want to say my experience in the Stockholm Academy. That's why I chose to be here. I think it was a great idea, and before I didn't know what to do, and I think now I have a more clear path. One of the things that I learned was to translate the skills that we learn in our PhD on the market. And then I learned that I learned too many things that I didn't know that I know.
See?
So then just gave me confidence. And then I remember also we have one lecture with Lena about, she's an artist, and it was about having confidence when you talk, when you do things. And that lecture, I thought it was not relevant at the beginning, but then it was my favorite lecture after, because I thought, well, I came to see how I can improve my CV, and then they're talking about confidence. But then it was amazing. It was about being human, about show what you can do and what you can achieve. So then I learned that. I also learned about different opportunities in the outside academia, and then I'll also get motivated to learn about to do a startup.
Yeah.
So then I have a meeting only with Lena and also with Eva, with different people. I've been in Stockholm Foreign Academy, have been so nice to me. And right now I'm in talk to create a startup actually with people from the SEU Innovation, and I think it's great. I mean, because I get just this confidence and motivation just being in this PhD academy. Before I didn't know anything, and so I think this just gave me the motivation that I needed.
That's amazing.
It's great, and also I feel a bit pity because before, I mean, the project that I'm doing my PhD was created because lakes in Sweden, they have lower levels. So the government is concerned because of the water supply and everything. So they create this project. I'm one of the few people who knows how the satellite works, and I'm becoming a specialist now. It's almost 3 years working with this. And I was thinking it would be a pity if I need to go to another country to apply all this knowledge that it was paid by Sweden.
Yeah.
And now I need to leave, and then.
And also, if they would lose the person who's an expert in this for Sweden.
Yeah,
now.
so I feel a bit. It was not fair if I leave. Also, it's like a social responsibility to stay because they pay my salary now. And now with this PhD academy, I said I feel so heard, so seen, and just give me confidence to achieve things. So I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
That's very, very good that you share. Now I think it would be actually time to start a little bit of a more energizing session. I will ask questions, rapid fire questions, and I want yes or no answers, basically. But I'm sure that they are a little bit more complicated than yes or no. But still, I would like you to then at least show the side of the racket that more closely reflects or is the one that's closest. If you feel completely unsure, I think you could do this. So let's see how it goes. So let's start. Is Sweden making the most of the skills of international PhD students? Yes or no? Good. Okay. Do Swedish employers have a clear understanding of the skills a PhD can offer? Wow, interesting. Should more international PhD students be offered industry internships or projects during their studies? I think it's clear from what you've been saying. Yes. Are language requirements a greater barrier than what we are willing to admit? language barrier, basically. A greater barrier than what we're willing to admit for Sweden. So and so. Okay. Does Stockholm have the potential to become the best city in Europe for international academic talent? What do you think? Did you hear that? Did you see that? Great. Should Sweden encourage more international PhD students to stay after graduation? Yes. But are international PhD students an untapped resource in the Swedish industry? Untapped. Not to say too much about ourselves. Should universities take a greater responsibility for helping PhD students establish themselves outside of academia? We also saw it in the survey responses. Will Sweden's future competitiveness depend on international cutting-edge expertise? I think the entire world needs expertise from different disciplines. Are we better at attracting talent than retaining it here in Sweden? Obviously, you all came, but we don't know if you're going to stay. Is overqualification a myth? Maybe, yes, maybe. Good. Would more companies hire a PhD student if they knew more about the skills they could offer? That's obviously what you think. Should more PhD students start their own businesses instead of looking for employment? Depends on the discipline, I think. Yeah, of course, arts, not necessarily business, I agree. Great. Would you recommend an international PhD student to build their future career in Sweden? Would you recommend a person to start a PhD in Sweden knowing how it might be for their future? That's an extra question I threw in there. Oh, great. I think the program switched this around. Has your view of international PhD students changed as a result of what you have learned today? From hearing also the previous discussions. It remained the same because you had your own view. Great. So with that, we end our session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for everything you have brought to us and all the knowledge you have shared, so we can just do this better. Thank you, and thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
There will be a 50-minute break, and since we are at the Kungliga Musikhögskolan så kommer det bli en musikpaus. Så det menas inte att ni ska springa ut. Måste ni gå ut så går ni ut, annars stannar ni kvar så ska ni få träffa våra 2 musiker. Som jag hoppas är på väg in. Där kommer de. Perfekt. Kommer Rasmus Hemström tillbaka. Varsågoda. Rasmus spelar som sagt nyckelharpa och ni ska också få träffa Stefan Miladinov som spelar ett instrument som heter tambura. Så det blir lite fartig balkanmusik så ni håller er vakna här tills nästa panel tar vid.
Okay, cool. I play the Swedish nyckelharpa. This is an instrument that is, at least historically, unique to Sweden. Nowadays, you can find it in other places in the world too, but it has been played here and developed here, and Stefan plays it Etablera. What you just heard were two traditional tunes from Macedonia that Stefan has taught me. We're doing this very exciting, I guess, musical collaboration where we explore each other's traditions and musical cultures. So we played first a piece called Sitna Lisa, and after that Doce Doce. And now we're going to play two Swedish tunes for you that I have taught you.
They're pretty fun, actually.
Good.
Actually, got more fun playing Swedish folk music with Erasmus than playing my own traditional music. But regarding this instrument, this is not just Macedonian instrument. This is an instrument of all the countries in the Balkans, more or less. Yes, but in the Southern Balkans, yes, almost every country has it. And I was quite surprised to see how well it fits into Swedish folk music. Actually, sounds really interesting, and it's opened a plethora of ideas for me and for us together as a duo to explore.
Yeah.
So without further ado.
Yeah. Now we're going to play. It's called the Släng Polska, and it has a text too, but we'll spare you the singing for now and just play it. But it's called När som flickorna de gifta sig. It's like from the borderland between Sweden and Norway. Historically, people just lived where they lived, and this is, it's unclear whether it is Swedish or Norwegian, but it's from somewhere around the border, around Värmland, anyways. And it's a Poles dance, and Poles or a Poles is a traditional or old dance. And this is one of their sung possibly by this person called Pauline Rokholt. I learned it while studying in Scania quite a few years back.
ses om en stund. Det finns något jag brinner för här i livet och det är därför jag jobbar med det jag gör och har gjort så länge. Och det är när vi blandar människor från olika delar av världen. Så viktigt. Och inte minst viktigt när vi hör hur bra det blir när man blandar svensk folkmusik med folkmusik från Balkan. Det är en fin mix. Vi är framme vid dagens sista punkt. Vi ska få höra en till paneldiskussion som jag ska hålla i. Så jag välkomnar upp på scenen, kära panelister. Ta era platser. Den här panelen kommer vara på svenska. Välkomna hit. Jag tänkte vi kanske bara börja med lite kort vad ni heter och var ni kommer ifrån. Karin.
Ja, jag heter Karin Ekdahl Westberg, innovationsdirektör i Stockholms stad och också en stolt medlem i Stockholms akademiska forums styrelse. Ja.
Tack för inbjudan. Jag heter Carl Kjellander. Jag är partner på Helt som är en life science-fokuserad riskkapitalfondgrupp.
Hej, jag heter Linn Lerpold. Jag är chef för Centret för migration och integrationsforskning på Handelshögskolan i Stockholm. Så vill jag lägga till att jag också kom till Sverige från Korea, Norge och USA för att doktorera här för 30 år sedan. Så jag har en lång erfarenhet av detta.
Hej, jag heter Hannes Hellander. Jag kommer från Kungliga Ingenjörsvetenskapsakademin, IVA, där jag leder arbetet med entreprenörskapsrelaterade frågor. Superkul att vara här.
Hej, hej. Vi har setts förut. Jag heter Sofia Eriksson Watershoot. Man kan säkert säga det på ett mycket snyggare belgiskt sätt som vår belgiska kollega ska challenge till dig. Jag firar egentligen 30 år utanför Sverige. Jag gjorde andra hållet. Jag har lämnat Sverige för 30 år sedan men är fortfarande väldigt hemma här. Jobbar på kommissionen under alla dessa år. Massor med saker. Just nu är jag vice generaldirektör för kommissionens kommunikationsdirektorat.
Och Caspian Rebinder heter jag, jobbar med arbetsmarknads- och kompetensförsörjningspolitik på IKEM, innovations- och kemiindustrierna, så en bransch- och arbetsgivarorganisation för läkemedel, kemi, plasttillverkande industrier i Sverige.
Tack. Jag börjar med en fråga till dig, Karin. Stockholm rankas återkommande som en av Europas ledande innovationsregioner. Vilken betydelse har internationella doktorander och forskare för att Stockholm ska kunna behålla den positionen?
Nu förstår ni att det blir ett långt svar om jag börjar 1642 med drottning Kristinas sluss här som är byggt mitt i stan. På den tiden då kom det experter från Nederländerna hit och hjälpte oss att bygga den här slussen med ny teknik och nya affärsmodeller. Och det var väldigt viktigt för Sverige, för hälften av all järnmalm i världen gick över slussen. Och idag när vi bygger om slussen för 5:e gången faktiskt på 460 år eller vad det blir, då är internationellt utbyte, innovation och internationell talang, expertis fortfarande väldigt viktig och avgörande. Det är en del av liksom vilka vi är i Stockholm, det är att vi vill vara öppna för ny kunskap. Om jag får ge bara några argument till varför det är viktigt för ett innovationsekosystem så handlar det ju dels om spetskompetens. Vi är företag här som behöver spetskompetens som är global konkurrens om. Det är bara att nämna Ericsson och AI till exempel så förstår man att det här är viktigt för Sverige och för global tillväxt. Ett annat svar är ju att mångfald ger kreativitet och mångfald inte bara kulturell mångfald utan över flera discipliner, över flera organisatoriska gränser. Vi vill ju bli bra på det här med tvärdisciplinellt utbyte på olika sätt och vis. Så det sista jag ska säga är i det här sammanhanget nätverk och kunskapsöverföring internationellt. Att internationella talanger för ju med sig kunskap, absolut. Men vi har ju hört här nu också att det är ett ömsesidigt utbyte. Att också personer som har bott och levt i Sverige åker ut i världen och företag exporterar sina tjänster och produkter. Och det är ju också viktigt när vi ska lösa otroligt stora utmaningar som mänskligheten har framför sig. Så jag ska säga att Det är avgörande. Det är väl det snabba svaret på frågan.
Tack. Carl, du nämner Helt här. Ni investerar ju i forskningsintensiva bolag där kompetens ofta är den viktigaste tillgången. Hur viktig är den här internationella spetskompetens för de företag som ni möter?
Ja, men det korta svaret är ju jätteviktigt. Och det lite längre svaret är också att det är jätteviktigt. Men vi är ju verksamma i en väldigt spetsig industri, eller en nischad kan man säga, industri där mycket av det vi gör är ju tidig läkemedelsutveckling. Där man tar steget från ett akademiskt labb in i ett mer kommersiellt riktat biotechbolag. Där mycket av forskningsmetodiken är densamma, men det strategiska tänkandet är helt annorlunda. Där akademins grundforskningspremisser faller ganska mycket då i ett kommersiellt riktat biotechbolag. Så dels behövs det ju folk som förstår distinktionen mellan vad är grundforskningsuppgift att beforska och flytta fram våra kunskapsfält till det här väldigt nischade då, kanske ett bolag som byggs runt en enda liten molekyl. Hur ska vi flytta den framåt så att det kan bli ett nytt läkemedel för de patienter som behöver det? Så där behöver vi ju folk som förstår forskningen. Och sen behöver man folk som förstår det här strategiska tänkandet. Och det där är en lärdomsprocess som tar lång tid. Och Sverige har ju en historik, skulle jag säga, av att ha haft en stark läkemedelsindustri. Sista 20-30 åren så har vi varit väldigt ovarsamma med den kompetensen. Och sen har vi fallerat också, tycker jag, utifrån ett finansieringsperspektiv. Så hade jag varit vd i ett biotechbolag idag så hade jag nog flyttat min verksamhet från Sverige i hög utsträckning på grund av att det inte finns kapital tillgängligt att liksom flytta fram det här bolaget på ett bra sätt. Och det gör ju att vi tappar kompetens. Dels för att bolagen som man vill arbeta på som, vad ska man säga, forskande industriperson finns inte riktigt här på samma sätt som de har funnits. Och
vad beror det på, tror du?
Jag tror att man kan ju ta Danmark som ett intressant exempel där ibland tycker det känns som att hela Danmark är ett stort biotechbolag. Mycket därför att Novo har varit sista åren så otroligt framgångsrika i att rida på den här metabola sjukdom eller överviktsvågen. Backar man tillbaka bandet så har ju Novo varit ett ganska, jag tycker jättemycket om Novo, men de har varit ett ganska tråkigt bolag som liksom har pysslat med insulin och sådana saker. Och sen i takt med att det där har blivit ett mycket större forskningsfält så har de ju flyttat fram sina positioner. Det har lett till att organisationen har vuxit och det har funnits massor med utrymme för Novo att få liksom vara en stark vattnare av rabatterna, om man säger så. Så att hela industrin där har lyfts uppåt. En del av det är tillgången på kapital som gör att man suger till sig folk. Tyvärr också från södra delen av Sverige. Men principen är att de har lyckats hitta en väldigt stark aktör och det motsvarande som har hänt i Sverige är ju, för många år sedan så har ju det som var Pharmacia, det har ju stängt ner och de delarna som finns kvar nu i Sobi, där har man ju slutat göra tidig läkemedelsutveckling. AstraZeneca har ju stängt ner en del av sina verksamheter i Sverige. Så att man har liksom monterat ner en del av vår forskande läkemedelsindustri. Det finns naturligtvis starka bolag kvar, men kanske inte riktigt på samma sätt. Så det där tror jag, men det finns massor med diskussioner man kan ha i det här, varför det ser ut på det sättet. Men
vi kanske lever lite på gamla meriter. Att vi har kvar en bild av så här är det i Sverige, men det ser inte riktigt ut så.
Det finns en risk att man slår sig för bröstet och säger Sverige är starkt i life science. Och det finns otroligt stark grundforskning. Så att det här invention kontra innovation, det är en viktig skillnad. Och vi har jättestark grundforskning, men translationen in i mer kommersiella bolag, den kompetensen finns inte riktigt lika mycket av nu som jag skulle önska. Så det är jätteviktigt att vi hittar folk, både inhemskt men också utifrån.
Tack. Linn, vad är den största missuppfattningen vi har i Sverige, tror du, när det gäller internationella talangers etablering och långsiktiga integration?
Jag kommer ihåg när jag kom till Sverige för 30 år och började i min doktorandutbildning, så fick jag helt ångest över att seminarierna gick på svenska. Så jag har med mig lite fusklapp, för jag tyckte det var en så bra fråga som jag ska använda. Men jag tror att den största missuppfattningen är att vi tror att internationella talanger integreras bara för att de är så kallade framgångsrika. Inte minst så skulle jag väl säga att våra politiker och även till viss mån företag låses fast med bara sysselsättningsgraden eller att anställa folk. Vi utgår ofta från att någon som har fått ett kvalificerat anställning, lärt sig svenska eller etablerat sig professionellt, så är integrationsfrågan löst, i stort sett löst. Men vi vet från all forskning runt integrationsmodeller så visar vi att integration är betydligt bredare än arbetsmarknadsdeltagande. Arbete är en viktig grund, men långsiktig integration, inte minst retention som vi har pratat om mycket här idag, handlar också om sociala relationer, tillhörighet, ömsesidig erkännande och tillgång till alla samhällsinstitutioner. Här blir något som vi också pratar väldigt lite om är det som koncept eller som teoretiskt har blivit kallat för integrationsparadoxen. Forskningen visar att det är de som är mest integrerade, alltså de som utbildar sig, lär sig språk och engagerar sig i samhället, ofta också blir mer medvetna om gränser för inkludering, diskriminering, eller att de fortfarande betraktas som den andra. Ju mer man investerar i samhället, desto högre blir förväntningarna till att bli fullt accepterad och inkluderad i samhället. Det innebär att integration inte bara handlar om individens anpassning utan också om samhällets förmåga att inkludera. För internationella akademiker kan den största utmaningen därför vara att de lyckas professionellt men ändå inte upplever att de fullt hör här hemma. Lite grann kan jag gå tillbaks till Putnams Bowling Alone, om ni har hört om det. Detta med, som Samantha var inne på, med community och karriär. Och Putnam satte den ikoniska citatet runt detta här med getting on and getting ahead. Skillnaden mellan och faktiskt ett välmående och känna sig inkluderad, känna att man har en stabilitet med sina liv och sina relationer. Men karriärbiten, inte minst som vi har pratat om runt nätverk, är oerhört viktig i Sverige. Och det är ju där karriärmöjligheterna är. Men det måste gå hand i hand.
Det är precis
lång utläggning på svenska.
Den stöder också det vi har hört ifrån vår undersökning och vad doktoranderna själva säger. Så är det framförallt inte arbetsmarknaden utan det är hela konceptet, hela delen, att vara del i samhället som vi måste bli bättre på. Tack. Hannes, du sysslar med entreprenörskap. Vi kunde ju se här också i Samantas redovisning vart man helst ville gå och sådär. Och starta eget och sådär. Det står ju inte jättehögt i kurs just nu. Så när vi pratar om det här med etablering, internationella doktoranders etablering, då tänker vi oftast på hur de ska hitta ut på arbetsmarknaden och få ett jobb. Men borde vi lägga lika stor vikt vid deras potential att bli entreprenörer, framtida entreprenörer och företagsskapare?
Korta svar. Om det ska vara exakt samma vikt, det är svårt att säga, men däremot så tycker jag att om vi tittar på Sverige, om man tittar från andra sidan, Sverige som land, som samhälle, tror jag gör sig en otjänst om man inte också ser den delen. Jag tror att det är självklart säkert så att de flesta kanske tar anställning, men det finns också otroligt många som jag tror kan bli entreprenörer. Och tar man anställningar, men då bidrar man med sin kompetens och sina nätverk och sina olika perspektiv till de bolag som finns och bygger dem starka framöver. Men de som vill starta nya bolag kan bidra med någonting helt annat också. Bolag som kan växa och stärka, skapa arbetstillfällen i Sverige. Så jag tror att det finns kanske lite för mycket fokus på att man bara ska ta anställning. Och att det borde finnas större möjligheter och stöd för de som också vill ta klivet. Jag tyckte det var bra, David, som du sa tidigare på scenen, att du har startat det här, att det handlar också om att vi satsar, liksom, samhället har satsat mycket på de här utbildningarna, och det är ett sätt att kunna ta lite grann tillbaka, eller kunna ge tillbaka. Så jag tycker absolut att det är en del som man borde titta på mer och se vilka nätverk. Sen vet jag att det finns generellt sett ganska många av de här frågorna som man som utländsk doktorand står inför om man ska gå över mot entreprenörskap är samma sak som svenska forskare står för när man går över. Så att förbättrar man systemet för de ena kommer man också förbättra från andra. Sen finns det några lager till också att jobba med.
Vad saknas, tror du, då, liksom för att man ska våga ta steget från forskning till entreprenörskap?
Det är en stor fråga. Nyttiggörande eller kommersialisering av forskning är ju inom lärosätena kan ju vara... Det har blivit mycket bättre över många år, men jag tror att det dels finns det incitamentstrukturer som inte riktigt stödjer den karriärsvägen framåt. Man tittar liksom den logik som man arbetar med under sin utbildning och under sitt arbete är väldigt mycket den akademiska logiken. Den är ganska skild från en marknadslogik eller en affärslogik. Så att komma i kontakt med det i tidigare tillfälle tror jag är liksom en viktig del. Och det är också en stor del om vilka liksom man har de akademiska nätverken, och där kanske man har liksom starkare eller sämre nätverk, men sen så är det en helt annan typ av nätverk, exempelvis som med de som kan stå för kapital eller med andra typer av stöd liksom i den här resan som entreprenör framåt. Och där tror jag att där finns det mycket att göra för den akademiska världen i stort, men kanske i synnerhet liksom, det är ett lager till om man dessutom kommer hit som internationell doktorand.
Mm. Tack. Sofia, du pratat om Choose Europe, att vi ska... Alltså det är ju inte bara Sverige som vill ha hit internationella talanger, utan det är en stor fråga i hela Europa. Kanske i hela världen till och med. Men vad tror du krävs för att Europa inte ska bara vara en plats dit man kommer för att studera och forska, utan också där man väljer att leva sitt liv?
Alltså jag tror ju att vi har ett ganska, om man kan säga så, positivt varumärke för både Sverige och Europa. Och kanske ännu mer sedan de senaste dryga året. Och det är intressant, tittar man faktiskt på hur opinionsundersökningar och så är europeer generellt ganska dåliga på att uppskatta det vi har. Europa har en väldigt positiv, eller har ett positivt image eller varumärke om man frågar icke-europeer. Medan frågar man europeer så är vi jättekritiska. Så jag tror ändå att vi har en väldigt god modell. Vi har en lång tradition av positiva saker som gör det möjligt att faktiskt inte bara forska. Man kan få ett jobb, man kan leva ett liv, man kan skapa familj. Och det ska inte kosta en förmögenhet, utan det finns starka strukturer för det här. Samtidigt så har vi den här långa traditionen av demokrati och ett öppet samhälle. Så att det är många saker som jag tror att Sverige och Europa kan erbjuda. Sen hur man går, så att säga, för jag känner att det har varit så intressant. Jag vill verkligen tacka den här då tidigare panelen. Det är så mycket intressanta resultat som kommit fram från det här arbetet. Och då inser man att det är ju kanske, jag vet inte om den gemensamma tråden är lite intangibles. För att en sak är ju, eller att det är transitions. Jag skulle säga de två, intangibles och transitions. Därför att vi pratade absolut nätverk och där community, hur viktigt det är. Men även hur viktigt det är och svårt det är. Och nu vet jag inte om det är svårare i Sverige. Jag tror att det är ganska svårt generellt i Europa att ta det här steget från vad man nu är. Om man är en masterstudent ska ta steget till arbetslivet. När man PhD-student ska ta steget. Eller kanske steget tillbaka, som jag också någon av er var inne på. Så att det är de här uppbrotten i livet. Eller då man vågar ta stegen som vi faktiskt satt fingret på idag, som är otroligt intressant. Nu har jag inte lösningen. Men jag tror ändå, och det vill kanske bidra till här också, att Sverige är unikt, men Europa är också unikt. Och är man så att säga etablerad i Sverige så finns det ju en enorm, det finns en stor arbetsmarknad. Så det skapar ju också kanske positiva vibe för det här då varumärket som vi faktiskt har.
Tack. Men Caspian, inte bara Caspian, utan vi hör ganska ofta i medier på olika sätt att det finns stor kompetensbrist. Företagen hittar inte den kompetens de vill ha. Kompetensen lämnar Sverige och så vidare. Och era företag vittnar ju om den här stora kompetensbristen. Kan du se att internationella doktorander är en underutnyttjad resurs?
Först tänkte jag att svara nej lite kaxigt, men sen såg jag att 5,5 av de 6 panelisterna i förra panelen tyckte att jo, men det är de. Det är. Och det kanske stämmer. Nej, men så här. Vi ser ju samtidigt många signaler som går åt olika håll. Som stämmer på samma gång. Det är svårt att hitta rätt kompetens i industrin och även i andra sektorer. Det är svårt att hitta rätt kompetens på alla nivåer. Från forskarutbildade som extremt kunniga experter i biomedicin eller specialkemikalier eller liknande. Ner till produktionsnivå på gymnasial nivå så finns det flaskhalsar och det finns friktioner som gör att rekryteringsläget är klurigt. Samtidigt så har vi ju också just nu en lite matt ekonomi. Det är stor internationell turbulens, det är avmattning, det är Hormuzsundet är troligen fortsatt blockerat ett bra tag till, oavsett vilka ord som amerikanska administrationen använder för att beskriva blockaden den här veckan. Med det sagt så har ju vi i ICEMs medlemsföretag, vi representerar då läkemedel, kemi, plast och några andra industrigrenar. Ungefär 80 000 anställda i de företagen, ungefär drygt 1200 företag. Många av de anställda, särskilt på forskande nivå, är ju i läkemedelssektorn förstås. Och det är en väldigt stor andel. Väldigt många forskare. Och jag vet att de företagen som rekryterar till forskande tjänster, de söker ju inte inom Sverige. De söker ju på den globala arbetsmarknaden. Det finns inget sånt som en svensk forskare eller en internationell forskare i rekryteringsmening. Det kommer upp frågor om svensk eller internationell i fråga om arbetstillstånd, i fråga om migrationsrättsliga regler, i fråga om ibland språk men oftast inte. Däremot möjligheten att ta med sig familj, möjligheten att flytta till ett ställe. Och där kan Sverige göra mycket mer. Där hade Sverige kunnat vara mycket mer attraktivt för arbetskraft på alla nivåer, både forskande och så att säga vanlig arbetskraft, både arbetare, tjänstemän, liknande. Men en sak som jag också vill nämna för att plocka upp en tråd som Carl slängde ur sig. Jag tänkte att doktorander, då är det en fråga om kompetensförsörjning och arbetsmarknad. Men du lyfter, Carl, om kapitalmarknader. Och jag vill inskärpa det och verkligen understryka hur viktigt det är att man ser hela det ekosystem som akademi, näringsliv, ekonomi, industri befinner sig inom. Det är inte isolerade vattentäta skott. Det är inte stuprör där arbetsmarknaden och rekryteringen står på en sida och kapitalförsörjningen på en annan och bostadsförsörjningen på den tredje. Utan för att en doktorand i kemiteknik till exempel ska få ett jobb på ett producerande, forskande läkemedelsbolag till exempel, så behöver det här läkemedelsbolaget kunna expandera i Sverige, ha möjlighet att utlysa de här positionerna som ska fyllas. Då måste Sverige vara attraktivt för en global koncernledning eller för en riskkapitalist eller för en investerare att bygga ut både forsknings- och produktionssajter i. Då måste Sverige kunna tillhandahålla både den arbetskraft som krävs, de kapitalvillkor som krävs, bostadsförsörjning, plats, miljötillstånd, elförsörjning och mycket annat. Och att se det här ekosystemet som en helhet, där jag skulle säga att idag så är kapitalförsörjningen en av flaskhalsarna. Rekryteringen, kompetensförsörjningen är en av flaskhalsarna. På industrisidan så är eltillgång, stabil och säker eltillgång och miljötillstånd och också 2 stora flaskhalsar. Ingen av de här är omöjliga att lösa. Om vi tar ett ansvar som land och faktiskt jobbar för att knäcka de blockader som finns, så kan vi göra så mycket mer. Sverige har en potential att bli världsledande i forskning, forskningsnära produktion och ekonomisk tillväxt.
Jag tänker på ni som representerar så många företag, en stor bransch. Gör ni någon särskild insats eller skulle ni kunna tänka er att göra någonting för internationella doktorander som behöver kontakter in?
Det som är vår primära roll som branschorganisation är att se till att regelverk och ramverk funkar bra. Vi arbetar som en näringspolitisk organisation och som en arbetsgivarorganisation. Så vi ger rådgivning till arbetsgivarna och vi försöker påverka politiken så att den blir välkomnande. Med det sagt så har jag själv varit i kontakt med flera doktorander eller personer som har funderat på att söka sig till Sverige. Jag har pratat med arbetsgivare, jag har pratat med lärosäten om hur man konkret kan samarbeta bättre så att de här vägarna blir enkla och tydliga och funkar så bra som möjligt. Men min primära uppgift som representant för IKEM, det är ju inte att företag A och lärosäte B ska ha en god relation. Jag hjälper gärna till med det, men min primära mål är att regeringen eller universitetskanslersämbetet eller vilken myndighet eller organisation det nu är förstår vilka flaskhalsar och vilka hinder som finns på vägen och kan lösa dem så att fler än bara företag A och högskola B kan bygga den relationen utan att alla kan komma ett steg längre i välfungerande kompetensförsörjning på akademisk nivå.
Tack. Linn?
Jag skulle vilja kommentera lite grann, Sofie, det du säger. För att nu kan jag inte så mycket om Europa i stort. Men vi vet att i Sverige så är diskriminering har ju växt i Sverige. Vi läser även i internationell media som tar det upp att den migrationssvängen som jag har haft har påverkat ganska mycket. Och jag hörde några doktorander som också nämnde det, att man verkligen märker det. Vi har uthålliga korrespondensstudier som visar att är du utomeuropeisk tredjelandsmedborgare så är det mycket, mycket svårare att bli ens inkallad till intervju. 33% av Handels sina masterstudenter, internationella masterstudenter, stannar i Sverige. Det är ett jätteförlust för oss, men de har svårt att få jobb fast de kommer med en utbildning från Handels. Så jag känner lite grann att den bilden som du målar upp är inte riktigt den jag upplever bland våra unga. Sen när det gäller just finansiering, jag tycker det är en ganska viktig poäng att ta upp att nu tänker jag på runt den akademiska finansieringen. Om du vill fortsätta efter din PhD i en postdoc och så vidare så har vi ett jätteproblem. Och det är ju att våra kollektivavtalen och så vidare, de jiver inte med forskningsfinansieringen i Sverige. Vi får ju väldigt mycket projektfinansiering från olika finansiärer. Alltså, ärligt talat så finns det mycket pengar att hitta där. Problemet är att vi får bara anställa 1 år av gången. Vi får inte anställa permanenta på grund av kollektivavtalen och sånt. Och det skulle vara ett medskick. Jag tycker att ni skulle kunna ta upp det, för det är nästa steg efter att man har ändrat på migrationslagen för doktorander och forskare. Så det är lite som det finns problem här, och jag tycker inte vi ska underskatta det, och särskilt från oss som har upplevt väldigt mycket av dessa utmaningarna till att fortsätta en karriär här.
Jag tar med den. Karin, Stockholm, folk flyttar hit och det är ju väldigt mycket en plats man väljer. Man väljer först en utbildning och sen väljer man platsen. Och vilket ansvar tycker du Stockholm har som stad för att få internationella talanger att först komma hit men också stanna kvar?
Jo, men vi har ett jättestort ansvar i det. Jag skulle säga att vi jobbar ju på lite olika delar. Vi har ett näringslivskontor som heter Stockholm Business Region och ett samarbete med över 50 kommuner som heter Stockholm Business Alliance, där vi jobbar mycket internationellt med attraktionskraft. Och de gör ett jättebra jobb, måste jag säga. För många vill komma hit just och leva här en stund av sitt liv i varje fall. Men det vi har sett är ju att man ska vilja också stanna kvar lite längre än genomsnittet. Och där är vi inte riktigt ännu. Och då sedan några år tillbaka har har staden ändå valt att bland annat engagera oss tillsammans med de 18 lärosäten som finns här lokalt i Stockholm och bilda då Stockholms akademiska forum. Och de här fantastiska aktiviteterna som ni gör som också bidrar till att skapa nätverk under den tid man är här. Därför att det är avgörande för att vilja stanna och leva en stund till av sitt liv här på denna plats på jorden. Och då är det, jag håller med hela panelen här, och det är en så fin bild av innovationsekosystemet, därför att vi behöver skruva på varje mekanism i det och bli lite bättre. Och jag tänker också på att bostäder, infrastruktur, välfärdssektorn, språkbarriärer, nätverk. Vi är ju ett av världens starkaste innovationsekosystem. Nätverk är en viktig del av vår tillgång, kan man säga, vårt värde. Men att skapa access till det nätverket är ju avgörande, och hitta liksom plattformar och vägar in. Och vi försöker göra det på lite olika sätt. Ett sätt är ju att visa att staden är otroligt glad och tacksam över att människor vill komma hit till vår del av jorden genom att ha olika möten i stadshuset, bjuda in till mottagningar och fika och nätverk. Och jag tror jag har träffat nästan alla här i Dual Career Network i stadshuset, ta emot och berätta om innovationsekosystemet och hur man kan samverka och sådär. Det är en del, men stadens verksamheter samarbetar också med akademi och industri i traditionell trippelhelix, och det är ju för att bygga liksom en koppling mellan behov och problem och lösningar och skapa långsiktiga relationer genom partnerskap med universitet och högskolor och industrin. Och det måste jag säga, det är ett evigt gnetande. Det är inte så himla glamoröst alla dagar. Men jag tror det är det som vi kan bidra med i varje fall, att skapa olika plattformar där vi kan träffas människor emellan.
Plocka upp lite grann på det. Ja, och jag tror om man tänker igenom vår industri specifikt då, biotech och läkemedel, så är det väldigt mycket av grundforskningen sker i ett akademiskt labb. Och där tycker jag att det finns en stor skillnad i svenska, kanske forskargruppsledare eller akademiska instanser, där det finns en ganska stor beröringsskräck mot industrin och framförallt mot sådana som jag. Kan man ett amerikanskt universitet så finns det liksom en rad med parkeringsplatser för venturekapitalister. Det skulle aldrig förekomma på Karolinska. Kanske av god anledning, vad vet jag. Men det är synd, därför att det skapar en större barriär än vad som skulle vara nödvändigt mellan grundforskning och mer innovation. Alltså de här kommersiella bolagen som behöver omsätta den här vetenskapen in i deras produktutvecklingskampanjer. För det är inte akademin som bygger nya läkemedel, utan det görs av industrin. Men industrin förlitar sig i väldigt hög grad på små biotechbolag som spinner ur akademiska labb. Så att det finns jättemycket att vinna. Och där tror jag man som doktorand, som forskargruppsledare, som verksam inom akademin kan försöka vara så mycket som man tycker att det är görbart. Gå lite utanför boxen och tänka, men det här projektet vi håller på med, kanske finns det ett kommersiellt bolag som skulle vara jättelämplig som samarbetspartner för att göra saker. Det finns en helt annan kapitalbas för att göra saker snabbt. Viss typ av instrumentarie eller teknologier som man inte har kan man ha nytta av det här bolaget som absolut vill flytta fram positionerna. Och så måste man vara balanserad i hur mycket min vetenskapliga frihet liksom, gör man avkall på den för att du har ett bolag som har en väldigt kommersiell, väldigt tydlig strategisk tanke vad man vill se. Men jag tror man kan närma sig varandra mycket, mycket mer och få ut väldigt mycket mer av den här ytan.
Får man ha ett litet samtal? För det blir spännande. Det vi kan göra som stad då, tänker jag, det är ju att vara med och bygga de här platserna där man kan träffas. Ett bra exempel på det tycker jag är Hagastaden, där vi har med oss lärosätena och vibrerande life science-kluster liksom, samtidigt som vi bygger ut Hagastaden och hitta egentligen former för att man kan föra de här diskussionerna närmare. Och ni är ju med i den utvecklingen också. Och där har vi ju identifierat egentligen flera åtgärder, bland annat öppna upp pensionsfonder och annat liksom, som skulle vara väldigt intressant. Men det gäller ju också att skapa det här mötet mellan intressanta investeringsobjekt och de som är villiga att ta en risk. Och det kan vi bli ännu lite bättre på.
Om det är rätt. Och jag tror den här kontaktytan kan göras liksom väldigt kraftfull i det att jag har varit inom akademin innan jag började med det jag gör nu. Och där är förståelsen för vad man gör, man ska säga, på andra sidan stängslet så att säga, ganska begränsad. Och att ha en lite bättre friktion mellan de här ytorna. Och vi gör ju det i princip 100% av fallen där vi väljer att till slut investera, så har vi haft en ganska lång period av interaktioner med en akademiker eller ett bolag och så, ja, men, vad håller ni på med? Så, ni måste göra det här, det här, det här. För det är så man tänker strategiskt i ett utvecklingsprojekt kontra ett forskningsprojekt.
Exakt.
Att ha den här friktionsytan är liksom superviktig. Så att bygga platser där det där kan ske mer naturligt är jättevärdefullt. Och sen tror jag man behöver arbeta med liksom sin, vad ska man säga, mentala agility för att tänka i de här termerna lite grann. Kanske kan jag hitta någon inte uppenbar person som jag ändå kan samarbeta med.
Vill Hannes, hade du något? Nej.
Ja, nej, men bara en kort kommentar. Jag tror att det också så mycket ligger i hur lärosätena ser på det här med de olika liksom, karriärvägarna framåt och vad det är som premieras och hur incitamenten ser ut. Och där kan man ju, det går ju att göra på annorlunda sätt. Ett exempel här kanske inte är världens bästa, men jag vet i Kina ganska nyligen så fick den första PhD:n som inte hade skrivit någonting. Han hade utvecklat en produkt. Jag säger inte att det är rätt väg att gå, men det är ett alternativ att titta på. Hur kan man liksom driva det här åt olika håll? Som då från om jag tittar på det entreprenörskap och bolagsbyggande-delen också som öppnar den möjligheten för mycket kompetens inom viktiga områden. Och så som bidrar till att, jag menar, vi vill ju bygga strategiskt viktiga bolag för Sverige på sikt också. De stora bolagen idag är väldigt gamla. När kommer de nya bolagen? Och då tror jag också här i rummet så finns det liksom frön till det ifall det finns möjligheter och man gör de valen till bra val och liksom rationella val för sig själv som person också.
Det ligger ganska mycket i linje med det som vi på Stockholms akademiska forum, hur vi arbetar. För att min personliga bild är att många gånger krånglar vi till saker lite för mycket. Det blir mycket liksom teori och det händer aldrig någonting. Så det var med den bakgrunden vi har drivit vår PhD Academy. Att faktiskt bara gör det bara. Testa er fram, gör det, bjud in de här människorna. Öppna dörren, säg välkommen, vad kul att ni är här. Låt dem träffa en psykolog, låt dem göra en mer holistisk bild av människan, tror vi ändå leder fram. Och vi har fått fina svar här idag från att det verkar som att en hel del av det i alla fall har gått fram. Så det är väl en uppmaning från oss på Stockholms akademiska forum. Att vara inte så rädda för, vänta inte för länge, undersök inte allt hur länge som helst, utan testa och kör. Jag tänkte att ni skulle få exakt samma frågor som doktoranderna fick. Och se hur ni ställer, se om det skiljer sig. Så under era stolar har ni de här små pinnarna. Så jag tänkte vi avslutar dagen på det här sättet. Så får publiken döma om det sammanfaller eller om det är stor diskrepans här. I cannot because I don't have the questions. It's the same questions as last time. So if you remember them. Okay. Kristin. And I prefer to do it. Tar Sverige idag tillvara internationella doktoranders kompetens tillräckligt väl? Har svenska arbetsgivare tillräcklig kunskap om vad en doktorand faktiskt kan bidra med? Borde fler internationella doktorander få praktik eller projekt i näringslivet under utbildning? Är språkkrav ett större hinder än vi vill erkänna? Har Stockholm potential att bli Europas bästa stad för internationella forskartalanger? Borde Sverige ha som mål att fler internationella doktorander stannar efter examen? Är internationella doktorander en outnyttjad resurs för svenskt näringsliv? Behöver universiteten ta ett större ansvar för doktorandernas etablering utanför akademin? Tvek på den. Ja. Kommer Sveriges framtida konkurrenskraft att vara beroende av internationell spetskompetens? Är vi bättre på att attrahera talang än att behålla den? Är överkvalificering en myt? Skulle fler företag anställa doktorander om de visste mer om deras kompetens? Borde fler doktorander starta företag istället för att söka jobb? Skulle du rekommendera en internationell doktorand att bygga sin framtida karriär i Sverige? Har din bild av internationella doktorander förändrats efter vad du lärt dig idag? Bra. Tack till panelen. Jag vill tacka alla som har kommit hit idag och alla som har varit med online för att ni har delat de här timmarna med oss, för att vi har fått lära oss lite mer om internationella doktorander och vad vi i Sverige kan göra. Vi är ganska övertygade hos oss att man behöver göra ganska lite för att få ett väldigt stor effekt. Så ta till era mänskliga sidor helt enkelt och öppna för möjligheter att verkligen välkomna alla som finns här. Och de behövs i Sverige. Och vi ska fortsätta med programmet i höst. Lite tweakat beroende på de lärdomar vi har fått. Och hoppas att det här är en metod som vi både kör här i Stockholm och som även andra ute i landet kan använda sig av. Det här är ju finansierat av Tillväxtverket, så därmed har vi nationell spridning och väldigt tacksamma för det och hoppas att fortsätta i framtiden. Så tack alla som har varit här och tack för idag.